You know, over the past 8 weeks, there's been a senator in here who has struggled with the birth of twin granddaughters, born at 30 weeks to a first-time mom, his son's wife, and went through a struggle that was near death at multiple times, but yet today, pleased to announce that those two baby girls are at home with their parents, thriving, new life, held in the balance, brought out of that balance by modern medicine, and now will be successful, contributing citizens with potential that will be manifested in millions and millions of ways that we can all look forward to and accept as a natural response to our procreative abilities. Why do I bring that up? There wasn't anybody in this room, and probably anybody listening, that didn't smile when we talked about that potential two new young children, two new young girls that are going to make an impact. Maybe just locally, maybe just in their family, maybe nationally. But the fact is we have joy when we see that kind of outcome. And the reason I tell that story is because it fits with who we are as human beings. It fits with our idea of the pursuit of life, of liberty, and of happiness. And that right is guaranteed to us under the Constitution. Kathleen Sebelius is undoubtedly a public servant to be honored for her years of commitment in the roles that she's held. But I believe she has a drastic and fatal character flaw. And it's this. She still believes that if a woman came with those twins at 30 weeks to a doctor in Kansas and he wanted to abort them, even though they're viable, that would be fine. Now, we're about to put somebody in charge of the health and human services of this nation who has this vital flaw of not recognizing the value of these two young children's life. What does it say about where we're going to go? What does it say about the judgment process under which we applaud her service but don't recognize this one critical flaw that says individuals can decide what individuals have life? We do that collectively under the law, but we don't do it collectively and discriminately on the basis of making the decision that someone ought not to have life at the very beginning. I believe that's a disqualifier. And I believe as we embrace more and more people into leadership roles in our government that walk away from this very basic characteristic of human existence, this very basic necessity that recognizes the value. We're not talking about a first trimester abortion. We're talking about snuffing life from viable children. I'm also unsettled as to her beliefs under the conscience protection for healthcare providers. That if in fact you think it's okay to take a 36-week child in the womb that is an inconvenience for someone, and that we as a society can't handle that, our choice is to snuff it out. How far does it go before we require the provider community to snuff it out? There were no assurances given in her testimonies that that won't happen. And we've already seen the Obama administration work to look at reversing the guidelines from the last administration, clarifying very particularly what the providers' roles are. It says a lot about where we are as a society. It says a lot about our misplaced values. The other problem I have, and it's one that I've never voiced from this floor before, but it's the idea that we, as politicians, embrace somebody for a position because they're a politician, because they've spent years being a career politician, and that qualifies them. The governor of a very small state population-wise to handle and lead on all these areas of health care. It doesn't recognize the complexities of the management organization at HHS, the difficulties they have in terms of carrying out their charges, but it recognizes past performance in a political arena and equates that as capability in a management arena. And if we continue to measure political success and confuse it with the ability to have management success, we'll continue repeating the same mistakes we've made in both Republican and Democratic administrations. My largest worry is not in the short term. My largest worry is in the long term. Because what our country lacks today, what it yearns for today, what it deserves today, is courageous, moral leadership. Not political leadership, moral leadership. It's okay to have a debate about the controversial things that our society faces. It's not okay for us to run because we're going to get hit by the press because we take a position that's different than that is politically correct, but is based on a moral certitude that all life has value. And yet, we run from the debate. The true Lincoln Douglas type debates that call and hold open the soul of America so we can decide, not on the basis of opinion, but on the basis of historical fact. And the basis of historical fact is this: when societies put value in life, societies fail to flourish. And so we have a nominee who, for whatever reason, vetoes a bill that says if you're a doctor, you ought to have to really explain yourself if you're going to take the life of a 36-week infant in utero. You ought to have to get a second opinion. You ought to demonstrate that you're doing what's in the best interest of that mother and that child. Well, let me tell you something. It's hard to demonstrate a best interest for a child when you turn it around in the womb, deliver it 2/3 of the way out, and then destroy it. That's a debate we ought to have, because it doesn't just apply to the issue of abortion and unwanted pregnancy. It is a barometer of the soul of our nation. And we offer no excuse that can be recognized as valuable for the betterment of our society when we don't have that very real and fundamental debate. So I think there's a flaw. I think there's a critical defect in this nominee. Whereas if you're going to be charged for the health and the services that relate to health and humans in this society, that you're confused on this very issue about transparency and accountability of taking the life of an unborn child. That's a non-starter with me, not because I dislike Kathleen Sebelius. I think she's a wonderful lady. But I think she lacks part of the moral clarity that is required to lead this nation in the future and to correct where we're off course on so many issues. Her ability from the start, the first day she's sworn in, will be compromised by her position on this issue. The confidence that she will require of the members of Congress who relate to this foundational principle of liberty as an inalienable right and life as an inalienable right will undermine her from the start. I have no doubts that she will be approved today. And so I mark it as another signpost on our way to oblivion as a nation when we empower those that don't recognize the value of life in positions that are supposed to be guarding that very precept and foundational principle of our republic. My hope is that the American people, who by 88% think this is an atrocious procedure and should never be done, no matter what parameters you put on it, will wake up and say, what are we doing? What are we doing? And for those reasons, and those reasons alone, I will vote against the nomination of Kathleen Sebelius.